I'm Rochelle Courtenay, and I'm super excited to bring you another bloody podcast. We are joined today by Darian, whose journey from childhood poverty to successful business owner is nothing short of incredible. Taken from her mother at 8, she grew up in foster care and was later raised by her sister. Among the many challenges she faced, period poverty was one that she continued to battle as she navigated how she was going to get through each period. Today, we are going to hear all about how she broke that cycle. Darian now runs her own business and works hard to ensure free period products are available for her staff and students. Welcome, Darian.
Thanks for having me.
So we always start our podcast with a would you rather question.
Cool.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Would you rather ask your school reception for pads or wear a tampon for longer than you should?
Oh, well, what I would like to do, definitely ask the reception. What I would actually do, wear it for longer than I should.
Yeah. And you've obviously been there, and we're going to talk all about that today, yeah? Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your early years, mum and dad.
It was just my mum and I from, when I was born till I was about 8 years old. Dad wasn't in the picture. Mum was adamant that she didn't know who he was. She didn't have a job. And she was really highly anxious person and really tended to isolate herself. So this meant that she didn't have friends. She'd isolated herself from family. And in addition to not working and not having any social support, we really struggled. To the point where my mum would continue to move every single time a place was cheaper for rent. $5 cheaper per week to rent, we'd move. And so I moved very frequently. That meant a lot of school changes too. That was really hard socially. This was obviously noticed by lots of people, including neighbours, friends, teachers. And this led to me being put into foster care.
The devastating failures of the child protection system aren't confined to one city or one state. The hundreds of people who came forward as part of a nationwide ABC...
Did you feel unsafe with your mum ever? Like, it must have been extreme for them to take you away.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you weren't cared for by your mum?
It's a really good question. I think at that age, I loved my mum dearly. And I knew that things weren't right. Like, I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what it necessarily was until I started going to friends' houses and seeing the comparison. And it wasn't that I necessarily felt really unsafe, although she did get, violent at times, but I guess it was normalized for me to the point where the desensitization to it, while I might have felt unsafe, I didn't think it was too abnormal, if that makes sense.
You were 8 though. How would you know?
I was 8, exactly.
Did your mum ever hurt you physically?
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was mostly when she was drunk, very early hours of the morning, or, someone that she had been seeing had walked out and out of anger would take it out on me. It was not super frequent, but often enough to be a significant problem. And even once is obviously not it, but yes, she was.
How did they know to take you away?
I think it was less about the violence and more about the neglect. So I don't think my mum was necessarily intentionally neglectful. I genuinely believe she loved me with all of her heart. And I think that she did the best job she could with the knowledge she had, the resources she had, with the skills and capacity, internally to look after me. But in reality, she didn't have the skills or the capacity to look after me. So it was more the neglect that got noticed. So I'd go to school with dirty clothes or with head lice, or I'd be really tired because I'd been up all night crying, and I'd be in tears all day at school. It was more those signs that were noticed, not having lunch, that sort of thing, rather than necessarily being bruised, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is your mum still alive now?
She's not. She passed away in 2022 of liver cancer. And so when I was taken off her at 8, I hadn't seen her my entire rest of my childhood and adolescence and adulthood. Wow. And in a last-ditch attempt to find me before she passed, she sent a parcel with some of my things and some of her things to a pub, of all places. And someone at the pub was able to locate me. They just found my business's phone number online, called me and was like, so we have this parcel for you.
At a pub? Had you ever been to that pub before?
Oh, maybe as a child with my mum, down the south coast where we used to live together. They were like, oh yeah, we have this parcel. It's addressed to you. Not really sure why it was sent to us, but there's a letter on it that says she is in palliative care. And that just hit me like a truck.
My understanding is that you also had an older sister that helped raise you. So when you were first taken away at 8 years old, do you remember that?
I do, and it was horrific. So when I was 8, we were living in Milton down the south coast, and we were on a quiet street really close to the local primary school. And because of the location, there was lots of kids who lived nearby. We'd all knock on each other's doors and we'd all play together. Mm-hmm. And so I'd always enter the door. We had a knock at the door one day. It was a Saturday. We were going to go to the Milton show, just the local agricultural show, and knocked at the door. I answered it as per usual, but this time it wasn't anyone that I knew. It was 2 ladies, 2 strangers, and one of them grabbed me by the wrist, threw me over her shoulder, and carried me to her car. And I'm kicking and screaming, as anyone would do, genuinely believing that I'm being kidnapped. I bit her ear, I was kicking her, and even my neighbours were coming out looking to see what was going on. I remember looking over my shoulder and seeing my mum restrained on the floor, on the grass, by 4 police officers, which felt really excessive. And I remember thinking, what has she done wrong? And I still don't know why they did that. It still seems very brutal given the circumstances. It was genuinely not until years later that I found out that I was not being kidnapped, that I was actually being put into foster care. So my first few foster homes, I kept continuing to try to run away from them, thinking that they had stolen me. And when I kept getting picked up by the police and taken back to my foster home, I would wonder why they're helping my kidnappers. It was a very odd and traumatizing experience.
Oh, that hurts my heart. I can't even imagine.
If you give children half a shot at starting to heal and process trauma, if you just give them enough relational stability, the vast majority of children do something incredible. They can rewire their brains and believe in relationships again.
Like, I genuinely would have gotten it. I knew that things weren't great. I knew that I was hungry, and all my other friends got to do dance or even, swimming lessons.
Yeah.
I knew I was missing out. I would have understood. Mum just needs some help. You're going to live with someone for a little while she looks after herself.
When you went to the first foster family, do you remember them?
Vividly.
Were they kind to you?
No, but they weren't mean either. They were just very neutrally cold, not nurturing, not loving, not encouraging or supportive or reassuring, nothing. And, I remember my first night there, they made me curry, and I was 8 and I'd never had curry before. And even though it wasn't spicy, I just hated it and I didn't want to eat it. And I got in so much trouble for not wanting to eat. It's like, firstly, I just had a very traumatizing experience. Maybe I don't want to eat. And also, why don't you ask me what I'd like to eat? If I was to be a carer, what I would do for a young person, I just think, what was everyone doing? Everyone was so insensitive throughout that entire process. And I think everyone, I guess, didn't think about the fact that I was a human who was capable of advocating for myself, thinking, making decisions, making choices. They're just dragging me around. But
How long did you stay with that family for?
About 11 months.
Wow,
so
that's
almost
a long
year.
time.
Yeah, so that was my longest placement aside from living with my sister later on.
How many other people did you stay with?
A lot, and I'm not sure. I've lost count. 10 to 20? There was a lot of back and forth as well. So, sometimes I would stay with someone and then they'd need a break. So I'd need to go and stay with someone else. And then I'd end up back where I was before. At one point, I was living with a school teacher because we got approval from the department. And I was always moving all around the place. So it's hard to keep track of.
Wow.
Yeah.
You seem to have come out of it this beautiful, incredible human. So whilst it is not nice what happened to you, look at how amazing you are. No, you wouldn't wish it upon anybody though,
No,
right?
of course not. It was awful. But
Did you feel
I've made
safe?
the most of it. No, I don't think at any point I felt safe. And I think even still to this day, I still struggle with that, even though I've got a stable, happy, very safe life now.
Did at any point they get you some mental health help?
Not until I was 16. And at that point I was self-harming. that was the only reason why I was given
You're still an
psychological
8-year-old
help.
girl who was torn away from her
Yeah.
family,
so
right?
8 years after the initial trauma and ongoing trauma in between. And, you know, even though I was with carers, that doesn't mean I felt cared for in that time, you know. And because I was continuing to move around, it was incredibly unstable, just as unstable as it was with mum. So it's like, okay, you've just traumatized me and I'm just as unstable as I was before. Yeah, I might be a bit safer, but was there really a benefit to what you were doing?
Sorry, my actual heart is hurting. It's hard to hear, let alone live through, right?
Yeah.
When did your sister come into the picture? So your sister is much older than you? Tell me that
Yeah.
story.
So my sister's 17 years older than me. And when I was young living with my mum, I would only see my sister maybe once a year because my mum and sister didn't have a good relationship. But my sister would always pick me up and do all the fun things in the school holidays. She'd take me to Luna Park, the zoo, buy me new clothes. Like, she really did what she could. But she was young herself, you know, so limited in what she could do. And after bouncing around through a few different homes, when I was 11 and it was starting to get more challenging for me to find permanent placements, that happens the older you get.
As a 11-year-old?
Yeah. So in foster care, it's actually really bad. The older you get, absolutely the harder it is to find a placement because the stereotypes kick in. Oh, you're approaching teenage years, or you're a teenager who's traumatized, who's moved through this many homes. What's the likelihood that that child's going to be, you know, someone who damages your home, is a danger to your kids or your family, who might steal things, who will end up pregnant on drugs, blah, 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 blah. So that was the stereotype that was already in front of me. And that was what I was going to walk into. So my sister knowing that, because she went through the exact same thing.
Right. So did your sister get taken away from your mum?
She did.
And did she live with your dad?
No. So same thing with me. My sister didn't know her dad either.
Right.
And so very similar story to mine growing up, but she was in foster care much longer. And when she was 14, I think approximately, she ended up in a group home, which was really awful for her. Lots of additional traumatic things happened there. And I think she really wanted to protect me from that and prevent that from happening. So when I was 11, she fought through family court and got full custody of me. So I was very, very grateful that she did that at the time.
So when you were 11, how long did you live with your sister for?
So she got permanent guardianship of me. So that meant that she would be my legal guardian until I turned 18. But through an array of difficult circumstances and her own challenges with mental health and substance abuse, I ended up moving out at 16-ish, 17-ish. So I moved in with my high school boyfriend at the time. I also lived with another school teacher for a short time as well, also with permission from the department, and became independent as early as I could.
What did you do at uni?
I studied medicinal chemistry to begin with, but I didn't finish my degree. It was really hard to do so, to study while not having support, money, especially for a very high intensity science degree where I'm on campus every day for several hours at a time. I didn't have much time to work.
But you tried.
I tried.
And you finished grade 12, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I finished high school. So already breaking the cycle within my family. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that backstory. I think that's the stuff that people never hear of, right?
No.
They'll look at you and they'll think, oh my God, she's so perfect, right? Because you are. You're
Oh my
quite
God.
bubbly, you're intelligent,
Ooh.
you're gorgeous, you've got this magnetism about you.
Oh, thank you.
You would never know that all of that trauma is part of your DNA now, right?
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed hearing that, actually.
Yeah, well, you're magic. Did you have a first boyfriend?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And did you do that just because you thought that was what you had to do?
Yeah, I had this. I love that you said that in that way because, I genuinely had this strong belief that having a boyfriend in high school was a very important thing socially, and that if I didn't, then I was weird and undesirable. So, I had a crush on everybody and then really clung to whoever gave me attention.
Yeah. And so you're married now.
I am.
Tell me about your husband.
Oh, I'm so lucky.
He's lucky.
We're both lucky.
Yeah, okay.
We're both very equally lucky.
How did you
I
meet
think.
him? What's his name?
His name is James.
Right.
I met him at his uncle's wedding. This was when I was 23, I think. And we got married when I was 24.
Beautiful.
So it happened quick. Yeah.
Is there kids on the horizon? What's your family look like? Do you want to have children?
Well,
I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask that question. Look at Brittany going, sorry, I'm asking. I just want to know if I'm going to be a nanny again.
You can ask this question. That's okay. So we're undecided if we're going to have kids. Yeah, we would love to possibly consider children, but it's way too expensive to even consider it at the moment. So, yeah, until we earn more money or until things are cheaper, it's probably not even an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That would also come from your past trauma of being able to afford things.
Oh, wow, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, did I just do a therapy thing for you?
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
you did. Yeah, no,
That's a mama thing.
Don't apologise. Yeah, it's nice to not have to pay for that.
Yeah.
You know, revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Do it again.
What else have we got? You talk about period poverty. How old were you when you got your first period?
I was 11.
Right.
And I was at my nan's house.
Okay, so there's a nan in the mix. Is
There
this
is
your
a nan.
mum?
My
Does it have
mum's
to be your
mum.
mum's mum because you've never found out who your dad is, right?
Yeah, my mum's mum. Yeah. So, I only got to know her for a very short time when I first moved in with my sister. My nan was introduced into the picture and I got to see her for a short time, which was really nice to get that connection. But I haven't seen her very much since. But yeah, I just happened to be at my nan's house when I got my first period.
Right.
And that was
Did
weird.
you know what a period was? Had anyone explained it to
My
you?
sister had been talking to me about it a lot, but not in an educational way, more of like something that I should be warned about. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was like this big scary thing that's going to happen at some point. Yeah, I didn't really understand what it was. I was just told that when it starts, I'll see brown or red on my undies.
No, at no school had anyone ever mentioned it?
No. And you know what? Moving so many times, there were lots of things that I missed in learning and lots of things that I learned like 4 times. And yeah, period education, sex education was something that I missed.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you were at your nan's house, did she have something for you to use, pad?
No. So I had to ask my uncle who lived down the road to go and get products for me, which was awkward.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And so, okay, now I'm intrigued by the uncle. Is this your mum's brother?
Yes, who lives with my nan.
They would have known what you were going through with your mum though, right?
Yeah.
Did that make you angry at them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially so my mum's brother and sister, so there's an auntie as well. My auntie in particular had a spare room, a husband, 3 children, a job. They were fine and they absolutely could have taken me.
Yeah.
But I absolutely resent her for not stepping up or at least not allowing me to visit. I didn't even know they existed until I got custody, until my sister got custody of me. So, yeah, I missed out on this whole family identity. Yeah.
And so you don't have anything to do with them now?
No.
At all?
No. I tried to reconnect with them when I was a young adult and spent a few years with them, but I just realised that they felt like they were doing me a favour by having me in the picture, and it wasn't like they were openly welcoming me.
Wow.
So
Look
I
at them
stopped
missing
trying.
out.
I know. So I stopped trying,
Yeah.
and that's when the communication stopped.
Yeah.
No one reached out. So whatever.
Oh my God, I'm going to love you forever.
Thank you.
At what other times in your life have you struggled to get period products?
My entire teenage and early adulthood journey, I would say. So living with my sister, even though she meant well and she obviously tried to prevent a lot of trauma, my sister was not ready to look after me. We did not have enough money, and my sister was absolutely battling her own journeys mentally with addictions, etc. Because we weren't doing well financially, it's not that she was being neglectful intentionally. It was more that she was always complaining about how hard it was to afford everything. Like we really, really struggled. And I didn't feel like I could ask for products. My sister uses tampons and I hate tampons. And so I would wear multiple pairs of undies and wrap up a huge amount of toilet paper, like underneath my undies, to catch the school bus that went for an hour to get to school. And I bled so heavily as a teenager, and I still do, which meant that by the time I'd get to school, it would have bled through. It was a miracle if it didn't on a given day. And, you know, the first thing I'd do was go to the office and they'd give me these really awful, crappy terrible quality, itchy, non-absorbent pads. And I'd have to ask, and they would just make it so shameful of an experience. If a teenager is coming to the office asking for a pad, I feel like it's a no-brainer that they don't have pads that day. Am I right? So why do I have to come back to the office 4 times in a day and then for the rest of the week when you know I don't have, like, I'm obviously going to have to ask again. And yeah, awful.
I can't even imagine how that feels, having to go 3 times in the day. Like, I would never do it, which is, did you go back every time? You would have just,
I had to.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I bled through daily anyway, but it was like, okay, I've got a stain on my pants or my skirt, but it's either just leave it there or I've got it running down my legs. That's how bad it was. It was so heavy.
Did you ever get bullied?
Massively. I was always met with disgust every time. And often it would happen when I'd been sitting in class for an hour and then I stand up. And so anyone who's sitting behind me sees it, but also it's all over the chair. And so now we've got to clean it, trying to rush before I'm going to my next class, you know, before anyone else really sees it. Girls were often much nicer. So, you know, the girls would lend me a jacket to put around my waist, or they'd help me clean, or they'd get a teacher for me. So the girls were, generally speaking, much more supportive. But the boys would snicker, pull faces, say really rude remarks. I don't remember any specifically, but just had no compassion. And that didn't improve at all throughout school.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you afford period products when you were at university?
I didn't. I really didn't.
So all your life you just dealt with wadded up toilet paper?
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I'd have friends who would, you know, I'd be at uni, oh, I just got my period. Oops, I'm unorganized. And, you know, someone might share something with me, but still that shame of asking and always being the one who forgets. And there wasn't actually a place I could go to ask for a pad. Compared to high school, at least there was the office, even though that was a shameful experience. But university, there wasn't anywhere that I could ask. I definitely missed class sometimes because of it too. So, yeah.
What would have been the difference if there had been period products in the bathroom at your university?
That would have taken an enormous pressure off me financially. It would have reduced anxiety significantly and shame significantly. I could have just focused on studies without having to worry about, you know, a third of, you know, my time at school, at uni bleeding. I could just focus on study. And yeah, it would have meant that I could have had that money go towards other things that I needed that I was sacrificing. It was so hard trying to decide where do I spend my money, you know?
And so did you eat well?
No, absolutely not. I tried to eat as economically as possible. I would get the 99-cent loaves of bread that were like the really tiny, I guess, pieces of bread, Coles brand. And I'd get the cheapest bag of cheese and a tomato and like cut it as finely as I could, and I would live off Toasties for the week. So that's like pretty much all I ate.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the worst situation you remember being in with regards to not having period products?
Probably being in that situation while at work and bleeding through in a public place where in the hospitality industry with a male boss who is very old school, doesn't care, no sympathy, doesn't even like you going on breaks anyway to go to the toilet, to have a drink of water, and it happening in a time like that. The embarrassment of, you know, people around me in public and no one being able to help, yeah, not ideal.
What difference would have been made if your workplace had pads in the bathroom?
It's like chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
I could have had the dignity in that situation to, you know, access the products that I needed without needing to ask anybody, and to also have had the opportunity to not bleed through and stain clothes, which stain removal stuff is expensive too. Clothes
But
is
it's the
expensive.
anxiety that goes with it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the dread and the shame.
Yeah.
And, it's something that I feel very strongly about now, and I don't have any shame attached to it now that I understand, and that, a lot of the social stigma is beginning to break. We still have so far to go, I think. But, yeah, that would have made the world of a difference for me,
Yeah. So for every workplace listening to this podcast, the most important thing you can do to help ensure that we have menstrual equality is to make sure that there are period products in your bathroom.
Yeah.
At the very least, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, educating every boss on menstruation is also really important. I mean, our Bloody Big survey showed that 60% of women don't believe that they were adequately educated around menstruation. I can only imagine that number for men wouldn't even be over 5%, right? So let's live in a world where we have educated men and women adequately, and we have provision of period products in every bathroom, in every workplace. You know what? Wherever you get toilet paper, there should be period products.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So tell me about the incredible business that you have now. And I am like, if I was your mum, I would just be bursting with pride about how amazing, from everything that you've been through and what you do now. Like when I talked to you on the phone, I was blown away by you. But when you walked in the door and I met you for the first time, I literally thought the intelligence and emotional intelligence and the savviness that you've got would be coming from somebody in their late 30s, and here you are at 28.
Oh my gosh, wow. Thank you.
Tell me about what your business is now.
My business is called We Future Leaders. We're an education and mentoring company, and we work with students from preschool all the way to university, one-to-one and in small groups in our centre, online, and also in schools. So we're trying to bridge education inequality gaps that are so prevalent in Australia. And, even though I had a smart, brain, and I was able to go through school relatively smoothly, a lot of young people who have any sort of disadvantage, whether that be poverty or living rurally or anything else, really have a challenging time engaging with education. And I recognise the importance of having an anchor of someone who was always there to support me. And I wanted to replicate that and help every young person, no matter what their circumstances are, to reach their potential personally and academically. Yeah.
I freaking love you. Young Australian of the Year is what you're going for next year. We're going to make that happen.
Okay.
How many staff do you have?
50.
50 staff?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It sounds so overwhelming saying that out there.
Yeah, it is. Staff are a huge piece of the pie, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so how many children have you helped?
Thousands. So we helped around 4,000 young people last year, and it's just increasing every year. So like, for example, the school bookings that we have booked for this year is more than we did last year.
Wow.
So I'm so excited.
Yeah, look at you just light up when you start talking about that.
Oh.
Oh, you're making my little broken heart of hearing your story
I'm healing.
heal a little bit.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So as long as you're healed, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
When you say they're mentors, are they teachers? Are they psychologists? Are they a mix of everything?
Great question. So our team is quite diverse. We have approximately 10 qualified teachers, and we had one educational psychologist who helped us to shape a lot of our programs. And the rest of our staff are mostly university students or late high school students. And, that works really well because they're young and they really connect with the young people. But our qualified teachers will oversee all the learning to make sure that everything is quality. And, yeah, they provide a lot of training to our younger staff too. So, yeah, we've got a good mix.
Fabulous. What do you see in the future for the next 10 years for you?
We really want to impact 1 million young people by 2040. I know that's 15 years. It's really not that far. And, yeah, to be fair, I don't know how we're going to achieve that yet, but I've always had big, crazy, hairy goals, and I know I'll get there. I've got the certainty that I will, so that's what we're aiming for. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I freaking love you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Right. When we talk about your amazing facility, I hear that you supply period products in your bathrooms.
Of course I do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. So, especially knowing how much not having access to period products affected me at school, at uni, and at work, it makes total sense for me to provide products for students and for staff. And it really doesn't cost the business much. Like, it's a negligible expense for us as a business. And I'm constantly refilling it, which means people are using it. And no one's talking to me about it.
Excellent.
No one, I don't know who's taking it, and I don't need to know. It's none of my business. But I know that it's being appreciated because it's being used.
If you had to go back and tell your younger self, what would you say to her?
Wow. I would say that you are going to be absolutely fine. Don't listen to everyone who is trying to bring you down. You know you've got this. And just go for it. Like, don't listen to the stereotypes. Don't listen to the negative comments. Just do what you believe in. Back yourself. Back yourself. That's it. That's the phrase.
Back yourself.
Back yourself.
What do you think your 8-year-old self would think of you right now?
You know what? She was such a confident, certain girl. Even with all the chaos of everything that was going on, I've always had this intense certainty that I know I'm going to be okay, and that I know that I'm going to be different. I'm going to make a difference. That's one of my earliest memories, is thinking that way. And yeah, so I think she'd be like, well, yeah, duh, of course you ended up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you hear about Share the Dignity?
I think I must have seen either a poster or a donation box or something somewhere. And then I must have followed you on Instagram. And so I'd been following you for a little while, the Share the Dignity for a while. And then I saw a post about you looking for stories that, you know, were relating to their own experiences with period poverty. And I was like, oh, I have so much I can share and contribute. And so that's when I was like, I need to be involved further.
Wow, I did not know that connect was there. And the real reason that I wanted you to come onto this podcast is when we donate period products in March and August, or we give a bag at Christmas time, we never ever get to hear the stories of why that packet of pads would help somebody. I want people to know that you're the reason why we give.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
So thank you for coming onto the podcast. I appreciate you like no tomorrow. And I hope that your story is heard over and over again, because it will make a difference to people.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that I could share my story. Thank you for having me.